Hello and welcome to American Wasp. I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, America's favorite white Anglo-Saxon Protestant gone left coastal. I am going to be making something of a habit of reacting to certain people, and right now I got my eye on this guy, Joe Walsh, who is a former Tea Party member. I reacted to an episode of his yesterday, and now he's an anti-MAGA conservative that is a temporary Democrat. And, here's the thing. I actually like the guy. He's got, I think, a good heart, but a socially conditioned mind that makes him less empathetic than he thinks he is. So, he's part of he's got, we're just going to react to him, but he's got this, I guess, conversational forum called Hope Not Fear Project that he'll probably push at some point, which I, no problem with, where he gets people who disagree together in the same room and they talk respectfully. And I'll issue a criticism for that in more detail if he brings it up. But basically, the problem I have with this kind of advocacy for a return to the politics of civility is just a manifestation of his heritage, his political heritage. And he's a Republican from a district in Illinois, so he's not like a Confederate flag waving, Bible beating gun nut. He's not MAGA, but he is still a conservative. So if he or his people are watching right now, I want you to know that I know you think what you're doing is politically productive, but it's actually antiquated. We have gone through the phase of trying to reason with Republicans, and they cannot be reasoned with. It stems from the fact that they are the least educated, least experienced, and the least intelligent members of our society. That is just a data-driven reality that you probably don't want to accept because it reflects poorly on your own intellect by being associated with these people, but you're still associated with them. So let's get into it. Hi, Elijah Romero. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get in to Joe Walsh of the Social Contract try to educate me about what America needs politically right now as a former congressman, as a former Tea Party member. And in case you have forgotten or in case you don't know, the Tea Party, okay, is the political foundation for MAGA. If you know your history, you know the Tea Party was an extreme part of the Republican Party, led predominantly by the Bible beaters of the South, the Southern evangelicals, okay? That's what the Tea Party was. So you can understand my reluctance to welcome someone like this into what I consider to be my party because, first of all, I've been here longer, but secondly, it's the only option. And there was a time when my party represented the values and policy portfolio of social democracy. I'm talking about the FDR years. But we don't need to get back into history. Let's get into Joe Walsh.
Hey, I got to tell you this Thursday, welcome everybody. Hope you're having a good week.
Give you
Former
1.5
Congressman
speed.
Joe Walsh with you this Thursday. I'm sick of the double standard. I'm just so damn sick of the hypocrisy, the media hypocrisy, I suppose, most of all. The hypocrisy on the part of, in this case, Republicans, all of Trump's supporters. We've had two old-ass presidents in a row, right? Joe Biden was old, man. Too old, man, right? And clearly, the last couple of years, he'd slowed down. And clearly, he had no business running again. And again, clearly, he had slowed down. And there were questions and issues about his cognitive ability. Is he all there? Can he do his job? All fair.
Now, this always has me wondering, does this person know the difference between liberal and progressive? I don't know. I'm going to have to keep watching. Hopefully he gets into that distinction at some point. I think he does. Whether he like would use the same words as me, he probably would not, but I think the sentiment would be the same. I think he does know the difference between liberal and progressive, and hopefully he gets into it.
Biden was 81. All fair, legit questions during Biden's presidency. Is he too old? Can he still do the job? There were shouts for the 25th Amendment when it came to Biden. The media covered Biden and his age and how he was slowing down. It was a big old issue every damn day the last 2 years of Biden's presidency. Fine, all legit. And I was right there with them. Biden had no business, I said, along with millions of others, even thinking about running again. He's too old. That was the focus. That was such the focus of the Biden presidency. He's too old. He slowed down. Can no longer do his job. 25th Amendment. None of that with Trump. Books were written. Journalists began writing books during Biden's presidency. Too old. Democrats covering up how old he is. Democrats covering up he can't do his job. None of this with about to be 80-year-old Donald Trump. None of it. Media doesn't seem interested. Media doesn't seem to care. Media thought they could make money writing books about Biden, how old he is. With Trump, we don't really care. Is he slowing down, Trump? We're not even going to talk about it. Losing cognitive ability? Not even going to talk about it. The fucking double standard is shameful. And by the way, it was on display again yesterday at the White House. Let me be clear about something. Let me be crystal clear this Thursday about something. Joe Biden was too old. He was slowing down. Had no business running again. I said that a bunch in real time. Donald Trump is too damn old. He's slowing down. I questioned Biden's cognitive ability during the presidency. Man, Trump's cognitive ability? Damn right it ought to be questioned. Yesterday at the White House. And look, I understand. Here's what pisses me off about the fucking media. I know. I go on CNN, I'll go on MS now, but I'm still pissed at the media. See, Trump's good for ratings. See, that's been the problem all along. Fuck the country. Fuck how dangerous he is. Fuck that he's a threat to democracy and the rule of law. He's great for numbers, Joe. He's great for ratings. We got to show his mug every single day. But he's saying shit that doesn't make sense. He's confused. He's mixing things up. He's not all there. Can't talk about that, Joe. He's good for ratings. We got to keep the camera on him. That's what it seems like the media really cares about. This was on vivid display yesterday at the White House. What I'm about to play for you isn't the first time, the second time, the fourth time, the 14th time, the 400th time. This may be like the 4,000th time in the first 15 months of Trump's presidency where he's not all fucking there, where he's lost touch with reality, where he's confused, mixed up, doesn't understand shit, getting names wrong, screwing up countries, whatever. This is about the 4,000th example of Trump losing his mind. He was asked a question. And by the way, he's got 4 heroes behind him, the 4 astronauts on Artemis II, who, if I remember correctly, didn't even say a damn thing yesterday in the Oval Office, right? Same scene where the old fat guy, Donald Trump, is sitting there at the desk, right? Sitting there hunched over at the desk, and his props are behind him. In this case, the props were those 4 astronauts. And Trump's doing what he always does, right? He doesn't stand anymore. Can't stand for a long period of time. You know why? Because he's too fucking old. So he sits down and hunches over, and he holds a press conference. And the media just loves it, because, again, remember, he's great for ratings. So they just boom, 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 bombard him with questions. Doesn't matter if he lies. Media doesn't care if he lies. Remember, the media stopped covering his lies years ago. Doesn't matter that he lies. Doesn't matter that he's nuts. Doesn't matter that he's mad. Doesn't matter that he's great for ratings. The media just keeps asking him questions. He was asked a question, I think by CNN's Caitlin Collins, about the war in Ukraine. I'm going to play this entire clip. I think it's about a minute and a half. Listen to what Trump said. Go, Keith.
So we had a good talk. I've known him a long time. I think he was ready to make a deal a while ago. I think some people made it difficult for him to make a deal.
Stop for one moment, Keith. Stop for one moment, Keith. We'll start over if you have to. He's talking about Putin. I've known him a long time. Donald Trump had like a 2-hour conversation with his boss yesterday, Putin. And by the way, after Trump's 2-hour conversation with his boss yesterday, Vladimir Putin, Trump works for Putin. All of a sudden, Trump came out and posted and tweeted, you know what? The American troops that we have stationed in Germany, I think we'll get rid of them. Oh my God, music to Putin's ears, right? He, again, all consistent with Donald Trump working for Vladimir Putin. So he's referring to Putin here because he's asked a question about the war in Ukraine. Continue, Keith.
First.
That's an interesting question. You know, coming from you, it's very interesting. Which war would end first? I don't know. Maybe they're on a similar timetable. I think Ukraine, militarily, they're defeated. Okay, you wouldn't know that by reading the fake news, but militarily, look there. Maybe. So they had 159 ships. Every ship is right now underwater. Typically, that's pretty good. What do you think, Jared? I mean, it's going to be hard for them to make a naval comeback. Okay, now they have an air force. Every one of their planes has been shot down or has been decimated. They have missiles. About 82% are gone. And they have drones, and most of them are gone. Most of the factories are mostly gone. And we have tremendous anti-drone equipment now, between lasers and that new, very special machine gun that knocks them out of the air like flies. And we use bullets instead of $1 million missiles to knock out a $30,000 drone. So I would say Jared would tell me that with everything he just heard, typically we're in pretty good shape. And in addition, their economy is crashing. Their, as you know, their money, they call it their money, they don't have a name for it. Their money is valueless. They've got inflation that nobody's ever seen before. Other than that, I think they're doing quite well. If you read the New York Times, you'd say they're doing wonderfully, because it's like,
Okay,
you
Keith.
watch
Thanks,
CNN.
man.
I mean, you cover it all the time.
Thanks, man. For about a minute and 10 seconds there, the President of the United States believes he's talking about Ukraine. And he's actually talking about Iran. He's asked a question about Ukraine. He begins to talk about Ukraine. He says Ukraine. And he says they've already lost the war. And when he says that, he's talking about Iran. But he thinks he's talking about Ukraine. They're already defeated, he said, referring to Ukraine when he really means Iran. They got no ships left. Done. 159 ships, they're all gone. He thinks he's talking about Ukraine. That's Iran. They got no airplanes left. Had about 80-something, now they're gone. He thinks he's talking about Ukraine. He's talking about Iran. And he goes on and on and on, describing how, oh my God, Iran's economy, they're crippled, they're done. He's talking about Ukraine. He thinks he's talking about Ukraine when he's actually talking about Iran. The president of the United States, for a minute and a half, confused Ukraine and Iran. Period. I heard some talking head on TV last night said it appears that he's confused. It appears that he really meant to be talking about Iran. No, it doesn't appear a damn thing. He is confused. 100% he's confused. He confused Ukraine and Iran. Period. He doesn't know the difference between Ukraine and Iran. Period. Or he just got really, really confused for a minute and a half. And by the way, nobody corrected him. None of his staff in the Oval Office corrected him. No media member corrected him. There was no follow-up question. Mr. President, excuse me something, sir. You're talking about they had 159 ships. You're not talking about Ukraine, right? You're talking about Iran? Like nobody corrected him. None. No follow-up. The President of the United States fucking losing his mind. And nobody says shit. Go back 3 years. Imagine that's Biden sitting at that desk in the Oval Office, and he's asked a question about Ukraine, and he starts talking about the war in Syria, thinking he's talking about Ukraine. My God, the media in the Oval Office would be jumping all over him. The New York Times, the Washington Post, everybody that night, the next day would say, uh-oh, whoa, this is really concerning. This is alarming. President Biden confused, big time, Ukraine and Syria, whatever. Oh my God, you turned on Fox News that night. Sean Hannity would still be talking about it to this day. 25th Amendment, Joe Biden is not all there. None of that with Trump. The President of the United States, completely fucked up in the head. Completely fucked up in the head. Thinks that Ukraine is already defeated. Nothing could be further from the truth. Thinks that Ukraine had 159 ships and they're all gone. Nothing further could be from the truth. Thinking Ukraine used to have a few airplanes, now they're all gone. Nothing could be further from the truth. I just don't believe. I always feel like I'm dying on some hills. This is a hill I'm going to die on. The other hill I'm going to die on is the damn ballroom, man. I run for president in 28, man. Day one, that ballroom's coming down. That's another hill I'll die on. I'll die on this hill. Donald Trump is not all there. We're 15 months into his presidency, and he's losing his mind. And the American people are not talking about it. Shame on the American people. And
I mean, you're right, Joe, but I just don't expect you to score any points with this, man. Like, okay, you did the diagnosis. Let's move on to something more substantial. Like, yeah, Trump's messed up, and there's no way he's ever going to get ousted because he's in a cult. I don't know if he said that yet. I don't know if Walsh has called conservatism a cult, or he's called MAGA a cult, actually. I'm pretty sure he's called MAGA a cult, to be fair. But what he doesn't realize is that conservatism is a cult. The whole fucking kit and caboodle. All forms of conservatism left to themselves become cults.
media is not talking about it. Fucking shame on the American media. Fucking shame. Jonesing for the ratings, ignoring the man behind that desk who no longer knows the difference between Ukraine and Iran. This is dangerous. This is really scary. This is only 15 months. And day by day, Trump has always been untethered to truth. Here's the deal. Day by day, he's increasingly untethered to reality. That should be a big fucking story. A big fucking story. Man, the lives of Americans are at stake. The lives of people around the world are at stake. Hell, the world economy is at stake because a madman is in the White House who's losing his mind. American media just doesn't talk about it. They're probably working on I'll bet you there are journalists right now working on more books about Democrats covering up how old and out of touch Biden was. The other part of that was when Trump said Ukraine, they're already defeated, and he's confused in the head. The other truth is Trump's always wanted Ukraine to lose. Right? So there it is. That thought is always right there because Trump works for Putin. So he's always wanted Ukraine to be defeated. The other aspect of this, and I don't want to spend tons of time on this, Trump's in the Oval Office. The 4 astronauts, the 4 heroes are behind him. They, by the way, generally look miserable having to be there. They, by the way, didn't, I think, say a damn thing. It's just the Trump show. But they're sitting behind him. Again, this old, senile, fat guy slumped over at the desk using these 4 astronauts as props. And Trump actually spent most of his remarks, prior to taking questions from the media, most of his remarks about the astronauts and the mission Artemis 2, the vast majority of it was Trump taking credit for the whole damn thing. And then Trump going off on how he could have been an astronaut. He could have been a great astronaut. He had the mental and physical capabilities to be an astronaut. He'd have been a great astronaut. Trump talking about himself. What a wonderful, great, accomplished astronaut he would have been. He could have been one easy. I kid you not. When there were 4 real-life astronauts behind him. And Christina Cook, one of the 4 heroes, there was this moment where there was this priceless photo about 3/4 of the way into this Trump batshit crazy show where Christina Cook, one of the astronauts standing behind Trump, is giving him a look that is just priceless. Keith, do we have that? Look at that. Look at that. Christina Cook, astronaut. Looking at him, the back of his head, as he's talking about what a great astronaut he could have been. Not that hard. He could have been one, he said. And there she is, blazing a hole through the back of his head. What a great photo that is. And of course, you recognize the bust behind her, who that is. But what's really interesting is, keep that up for a sec, Keith, Christina Cook. I don't remember seeing a picture of her not smiling. I only know pictures of her these last few weeks where she's smiling. When she got back home, before she left, my God, when she was up in outer space, right, circling the moon, and all the videos, all the pics that these four heroes were taking of, there she was, educating the American people, always with a smile on her face. This astronaut, this American hero, always smiling. This is the first picture I've ever seen of her where she's not smiling. I don't know. Do with that what you want. Hey, two other quick thoughts. Thanks, Keith, on that. Two other quick thoughts I want to get to before we close this Thursday. There are a lot of people, a lot of Americans, who believe that the shooting this past weekend at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was staged. There are a lot of people on the right and the left who believe that. There are a lot of people on the right and the left who believe the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania against Trump was staged, that these were false flag operations. They were all staged events. There are more Americans than you think who believe in these conspiracies, that these two attempted assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life were not real. They were staged. Now, to be clear, I don't believe that at all. I do not believe either event was staged. I believe they were both legit assassination attempts. That's what I believe. The point I'm making is there are a lot of Americans, an increasing number of Americans, who believe in these conspiracies. Just like there are a lot of Americans who actually believe the 2020 election was stolen. Just like there are a lot of Americans who believe in the conspiracy that there is a deep state embedded within our federal government that's declared war on conservatives and is out to get Trump. There's Pizzagate. I'm forgetting the other big one. I'm just drawing a blank. There are so many conspiracies out there. And it seems to me, and it's not just the domain of the right. I'll tell you what, because of my strange political journey from Tea Party to independent to never Trumper to now temporary Democrat, I hear from a lot of folks on the left who believe the 2024 election was stolen. Not at all to the degree, 80% of Republicans still believe the 2020 election was stolen, but there are people on the left, there are Democrats who believe Trump and Elon Musk stole the 2024 election.
Yes.
What's intriguing to me is why so many people, so many Americans, believe in conspiracies. And this seems to be a real big recent phenomenon. It's always been there, but it seems to be really big.
So let's see if he gets into the narcissism of conspiracy theories.
And has become a big deal, conspiracy theories, in this age of Trump. Mostly on the right, but plenty on the left. It's an interesting question for us all to think about. Why do so many Americans now believe in conspiracies? Why is this a big recent deal?
Hasn't become exponentially more popular now. Conspiracy theories have always been around for a long time, and yeah, maybe they're trending upward, but they're not spiking. Epstein is the spike, and we're on a whole new level because of that.
I think there are four reasons. Think about this. Let me know what you think. I think there are four reasons why conspiratorial thinking is now so widespread in America. Reason number one is Trump. Well, reasons number one and two are Trump. Reason number one is Trump. Why do people believe the assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last weekend and the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania 2 years ago? Why do people on the right and left believe that they were staged? Well, part of it is because of Donald Trump. He's so bad and so corrupt and so lawless. It's not far-fetched to think that he would stage assassination attempts on himself. Trump doesn't adhere to any norms. Trump will do anything to win. He believes he's above the law. See, Trump is such a bad person, it's actually kind of believable with Trump that he actually would stage an assassination attempt. That's reason number one. The second reason we can't ignore also has to do with Trump. Donald Trump's a pathological liar. He's one of the biggest liars in human history. He came of age politically, spreading conspiracies. Trump is one of the biggest spreader of conspiracies in this era. Obama's not American. Obama wasn't born here. Trump became a thing by spreading that. Trump has encouraged and spread all sorts of conspiracies and lies and bullshit to get himself elected twice. So I think that's another big reason. Donald Trump himself is a pathological liar and a huge conspiracist. Why do so many people now believe conspiracies? The last two reasons have to do with us, I think. And I do want to know what you think. If you want to send me an email, always do. thesocialcontract@joewalsh@gmail.com. All one word. Let me know what you think of my theorizing here on why so many, thanks Keith, why so many Americans believe in conspiracies. I think the third reason so many Americans today believe in conspiracies is because we're so damn polarized. We're so dangerously polarized. And because we're so dangerously polarized, we want to believe the worst about the other side.
No. It's not because we're polarized. And we're not polarized. We're fractionalized. This is an important distinction here. He thinks in terms of left and right as opposed to really the five-way breakdowns of American political factions, where you got the far right, the medium right, the anti-MAGA conservatives, then you got the centrist independents, and then you got the neoliberal establishment, and then you got the far left, which is what I am, the progressive left. So no, it's not because we're polarized. If you want to say it's because we're fractionalized, you might be right, but this is where I feel like I could help people like Joe Walsh get a little bit more specific with their analysis.
We want to believe the worst. Like, we're so polarized. If you're a Democrat or you're a member on the left, you want to believe the absolute worst about Trump and MAGA. So you can believe, of course, they might do something so hideous as actually making up and staging an assassination attempt. We're so damn polarized, we have gotten to a point where we think the absolute worst of each other. Republicans, back in 2020, no way could we have...
But that's the fault of the far right being in power. You voted for him in 2016, man. You helped make this happen. Like I said earlier, you were part of the Tea Party. You helped make this happen. And you're here talking to, like, people as if you weren't complicit in creating the world that we now live in. You have had the power.
Lost an election to Democrats, fair and square. No way could Trump have lost to Biden. No, we've got to believe the worst about Democrats. They stole it. They stole the election. We're so polarized. And we go down this rabbit hole where we continue to believe the worse and worse and worse about those people on the other side. The final reason why I think an increasing number of Americans buy into conspiracies is because staying informed and actually following the truth, that's hard. That takes work. It's a hell of a lot easier to not stay informed and just turn on the news network or show or go to the website that doesn't inform you, but just confirms what you believe. And if I don't like the truth, if the truth is hard for me to accept, it's a lot easier to just accept bullshit and lies. So way too many Americans have chosen the easier route. We're not doing our job as free, informed citizens. This is why we're buying into bullshit and lies and conspiracies. So many of us. If you want to stay informed, I mean actually informed today in America, you got to do some fucking work. You can't just go to your bubble and have Hannity or Rachel Maddow feed you the shit you want to hear. You got to get out there and go to a bunch of bubbles, all kinds of bubbles, to get the best information you can get so you can get at the truth, so you can know what the truth is about the COVID vaccines. Instead of just going to your bubble, and in your bubble, they tell you, oh, the vaccines are deadlier than COVID itself. Oh, yeah. I'm going to believe that because that's kind of what I want to believe. As a people, think about this. Most of us no longer want to be informed. We no longer try to be informed. We have our beliefs. We have our inclinations. And so every day we go to places to get those beliefs, those ideas, those inclinations confirmed. We're not willing anymore to do the hard work of actually staying informed. And look, it's hard to accept the truth because oftentimes the truth is going to go against what you want and what you believe. There's an election. You want to win the election. You didn't win the election. Your side didn't win. That's hard to accept. So I'm going to ignore that truth. And I'm going to believe this lie and this conspiracy that the election was stolen. That's a lot easier because that's what I want to believe. It's so much easier to wrap your arms around lies and bullshit and conspiracies than it is to try to get at the truth and accept the truth, whatever the truth is.
I talk about that in one of my essays where conservative cognition is not defined by right and wrong or even left and right. It's about what's truthful or what's right versus what is easy. They take the easy way out intellectually. And it's not as bad as it is with other conservatives here with Mr. Joe Walsh, but he's still got some serious blind spots, especially about the context of today's politics. And as he's older, I think he doesn't recognize that we are in a state of revolution. We are at war with ourselves. This is MAGA's war on government, and everyone else is kind of stepping up and be like, no, wait. We not only do we need to have a functional government, we need to have government protect us from things like billionaires who are politically active and corporations who all they care about is their bottom line.
The American people have stopped doing their job, I believe, in a lot of ways, as free citizens to help keep this democracy going. This is one big area because without an informed public, we're fucked. Without an informed, engaged citizenry that stays informed and educated and doesn't go down conspiratorial rabbit holes, without an informed citizenry, this thing can't stand. This democracy, this 250-year-old constitutional republic can't make it without an informed citizenry at all. And with the citizenry becoming more and more detached from what the truth is, because it's so much easier to believe bullshit and lies and conspiracies, we can't stand. This is our job. This isn't on Trump and not on anybody else. This is on the American people to change, to do the tougher work. It's a problem on both sides. It's more pronounced on the right. Fair's fair. That's my take. This problem of...
See, and that's why I kind of like him. because he admits that there's some freak shows on his side. What he doesn't get specific with, and this is always a theme with me, is specificity, is the size of MAGA and how MAGA is 2/3 of the GOP at least, probably closer to 80% now, because that's Trump's approval rating right now with Republicans is 80%. It used to be around 2/3, 70% a few years ago. That was based on the election denial of 2020. I did a video about that. That was like, pretty popular.
Not wanting to be informed and not accepting truth, and just it's easier to buy the lies and the bullshit. It's more pronounced on the right. But it's on both sides.
But because that's what he says, that it's more pronounced on the right. He's willing to concede that, but he's not willing to concede that the right has effectively become fascist and effectively, by extension of that, fascism become evil. Because fascism is evil. We fought a fucking war over it. And, you know, guys like Joe Walsh are good and useful in terms of showing us that there's hope for the anti-MAGA conservatives, but they have to leapfrog neoliberalism. Like, if you're walking the traditional political path across the spectrum in this country, you're going to run into neoliberalism before you run into progressivism. And so that's what I worry about Walsh, if he's even interested in the far left, which, by the way, by international standards, isn't even that far left. We're not asking for a whole lot. We're asking for the basics.
Keith, I'll stop there. Had one other thing I want to get to, but I'll save it for another day. HopeNotFearProject.org. There it is, right there on my shoulder. HopeNotFearProject.org. Check it out. Every 2 weeks, I'm going somewhere in the country and putting people in a room who disagree, and we're having conversations, tough, honest conversations. We've got content from those conversations at the website for you to look at. Check it out. HopeNotFearProject.org.
I should check
my
that out.
Substack, Social Contract with Joe Walsh. .substack.com. Social Contract with Joe Walsh.substack.com. I've got a cool piece up there right now telling my new political party, quit being such fucking wussies. Quit being so afraid. Quit being so weak. Toughen up, Democrats. I think you'd like the piece. Give it a look. Social Contract with Joe Walsh.substack.com.
Whoa.
Quit being so afraid. Quit Substack.com. I've got a Substack, Social Contract with Joe up there right now telling my new political party, quit being such fucking wussies. Quit being so afraid. Quit being so weak. Toughen up, Democrats. I think you'd like the piece. Give it a look. Social Contract.
Okay, so I like the sound of that, but I got to go check it out to see what he says, because, I mean, if he's saying toughen up, it's just more of the same we're not MAGA rhetoric. See, that's what I think the Democrat, and I'll call it a day there with Mr. Joe Walsh. That's what has been the problem with the Democratic Party since 2016, is that the messaging, 80% of it, 90% of it, is we're not MAGA, so vote for us because we're not evil. Where you need to offer a replacement. You need to say, what are you going to do once you have power? And that's the running theme of Democrats for a really long time now, is they come up with excuses not to use their power. And conservatives obviously are the opposite, where they just use their power to do whatever the hell they want. And they're going to inflict as much influence on our culture and society as they can when they are in power. So when I see guys like Joe Walsh of the Social Contract, it's like, welcome to the sunny side of the street, but I don't trust you yet. I don't trust you, man. I think you got a lot of growing to do before I consider you my equal within the context of citizenship. You're getting docked points for being a not only conservative, but a member of the Tea Party. Like, I still can't get over that. And until you say that you were wrong about everything, except for maybe, conservatism on an individual level can instill in people a good work ethic, but that's it. That's the only good thing. And on a collective level, it ultimately leads to fascism. And he's not willing to concede that. There's no way a guy like Joe Walsh of the Social Contract is ever going to concede that the natural progression of conservatism within a political context ultimately leads to fascism. It ultimately devolves into fascism. There's no way he's going to admit that. And until he's ready to admit that, then there is no place for him on the left. And I hope some of his people are watching right now, because if Joe Walsh is as tough as he implies that he is, then he can take some constructive criticism from someone that also used to be a conservative. Don't forget, y'all, I've traveled the political spectrum. I started out under the parenting of right-wing military, right-wing corporate America, and right-wing religious, Southern evangelical to be specific. Joe Walsh is someone that thinks he understands politics, but is actually so ignorant, not just about the left, but about the right, that all he can do with his messaging is focus on Trump is evil, incompetent, whatever, negative stuff about Trump, and then the politics of civility. That's what he's offering with those hopenotfearproject.org. And you're welcome for pushing that again, Joe. hopenotfearproject.org, where Joe Walsh shows us that if we just treat each other with a little bit more respect, we can have a better country. Sorry, Joe, but we are at war, and your side started it. Now my side has to end it. You're delusional if you don't think we are in the midst of the third great civil conflict in our nation's history. The Civil War repeated as a tragedy with civil rights. And now it has repeated as a farce with MAGA's war on government. You know who said that? History repeats itself, first as a tragedy, second as a farce. Joe Walsh. Karl Marx. Yeah. So there's no way you have a holistic education on politics, because if you did, you wouldn't be preoccupied with the politics of civility. A lot of history tells us that sometimes the circumstances become so dire, so extreme, that revolution is required. My man, Joe Walsh, revolution is happening. Your side attacked first. And now it's on my side to not issue a counterattack, just a counterattack, but many counterattacks. Over how long? 40 fucking years, brah. That's right, Walsh. We're coming for the GOP for the next 40 fucking years. If you're not on board with this war on MAGA trash, then just stay on the sidelines, man. In fact, go to the bleachers and watch. Because you're the type of person that when people listen to you, they think that conservatism is intellectually valid. Because you're a nice guy and you just want everyone to get along. Fuck that. It's war. You might not have started it, but your conservative brethren did. So if you want to be involved in the counterattacks, cool. But you won't be leading the charge. You are there to support others who have seen conservatism, not just MAGA, conservatism coming to destroy our nation for the last 45 fucking years. So Joe Walsh, if you want to preach things like Reaganism and American exceptionalism, which you should check out my third episode, by the way, because it exposes American exceptionalism as just another piece of propaganda America uses to justify its collective sociopathy? Yes, Latino Mafune. False moderation is what brought the U.S. to this precarious place. It was just the gradual breaking down of the established norms in the post-war building of our society after FDR about the relationship between government and citizen. And people like Joe Walsh said that government is the problem. Fuck that, Joe Walsh. Conservatism is the problem. And if you have the balls to bring me on your show, then I will teach you that conservatism is the problem. If you are willing to listen, if you have the courage to admit that I know better than you. I came from a culture consistent with the Tea Party, and I traveled the political spectrum. I have lived all over this country. I know the Deep South. It sounds like I know the Deep South better than you, even though you were a part of the Tea Party. Because you're in denial if you don't think the Confederate flag-waving, Bible-beating gun nuts, a.k.a. MAGA, have corrupted the Republican Party beyond reproach. That it is now an institution of evil. And to be fair, Joe Walsh sounds sometimes, maybe even most of the time, like he concedes that. But then he calls himself a temporary Democrat. It's like, what are you doing, dude? You're in your 60s. By the time you die, the Republican Party will still be evil. So you better be a permanent Democrat. You better be committed to the team, brah. Remember the team aspect? If you want to take something from conservative culture over and make it part of the Democratic Party's culture, it should be the old saying, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Well, Joe, if you can bring that Democrats fall in line type of attitude to the Democratic Party, assuming we make some serious adjustments in our own culture, like abolishing AIPAC, promoting Medicare for all, those kinds of things, those progressive policy proposals. What policy proposals do you have, Joe? Other than being anti-MAGA, what are you really offering? Other than humanizing MAGA trash with your hopenotfearproject.org, what are you really offering? You should be interviewing leftists and getting to know the far left. Because we're not like neoliberals. We aren't driven by greed. We aren't driven by greed. You understand? I know it's hard for conservatives because they're such by nature competitive people and by nurture. Talk about that in my essays if you haven't seen them. The competitiveness within them defines them. They cannot shake it. It just hangs around their heart and soul as if it's the most important thing in the world. They need to win. And that's why I'm coming at Joe Walsh so hard. Because I believe that people with conservative psychological dispositions, they only understand one thing if your goal is to change them. Straight, head-on collision. I'm not going to apologize for coming at you, Joe Walsh of the Social Contract, because you have potential to be a great transformational voice for progressivism, not neoliberalism, progressivism, specifically progressive pragmatism. You conservatives like to talk about pragmatism. Well, what if you simply get rid of that goddamn stupid Reagan cultural assumption that government is the problem and open your mind to the fact that we have technology and resources now that can not only make government a solution, it can make government the solution by way of politicians becoming public servants. That's another thing I never hear you talk about. is separating politicians from public servants. So I challenge you, Joe Walsh, to have me on your show. I promise I won't raise my voice. I promise I won't interrupt you as long as you don't interrupt me. And we can have a great conversation about what because I saw Trump coming before you did, think the left should become so that it does include people like you. Hey, man, as long as you're pro-choice and you can get rid of the last 45 years of political norms that have been established, you can get rid of Reagan's bullshit government is the problem. You can get rid of those things and come to me as a student who knows more about the left than you do, and always will, then we can have a productive conversation, my man. But you, I'm just realizing too, are a baby boomer conservative. Now, I want you to know this. You have to make a decision as to what you want your legacy to be. You have the power and the opportunity to transform your reputation between now and when you leave this earth. Because when you leave this earth, your reputation becomes your legacy. But this ain't the way, my man. Your legacy will be one of an anti-MAGA pussy. You're still making excuses for them with this hopenotfear.org project. That's the big transition that you need to make. Is that it's not just MAGA leadership, it's not just Trump. It is the cult of MAGA trash. And the thing that we're probably always going to disagree on, but I maintain that if you want your reputation, which will become your legacy, to be positive, you're going to have to get to the point where you realize that it's not just MAGA conservatism that becomes fascism. It's all of conservatism. Because after all, resistance to change in a world that is defined by change is counterproductive to improving society generation to generation. And that is the big difference between baby boomers and everybody else, is your generation didn't care about improving American society so that my generation could do even better. We're doing worse because of you. And not the rhetorical you. I don't know where you stood on these things, although the fact that you were a Tea Party member makes me think that you had a lot of support for the devastating policies that have been passed by our federal government over the last 45 years. You know, there's some certain themes here that you should have caught up to by now that they're just non-negotiables. Reagan sucked. The Bushes sucked. Clinton sucked. Obama was a pussy, too preoccupied with getting people to like him. I shouldn't call Obama a pussy. He wasn't a pussy. But he was soft. No doubt about that. Except when it came to some military actions, I guess. And, you know, I don't know, maybe you dug those. But that's another issue we got to talk about, is your opinion on American foreign interventionism. What are you talking about when you say America has always been a force for good in the world? Are you serious? That's American exceptionalism devolved into American narcissism. You need to go check the history, my man. America has been involved in a lot of foreign interventionism that has fucked over a lot of countries. Go do your homework on that, as I continue to do my homework on you. So, hopefully, I'm going to send this to Joe Walsh's people, so hopefully they have a look. But in conclusion, Obama, Latino Mafune, Obama and his party confused by partisanship with democracy. Yeah, I mean, that's what, and that's again, thank you, Latino Mafuna, because that's a good concluding remark is, hey, Joe Walsh, like, and maybe he would agree with this. Bipartisanship is dead for the next 20 to 40 years. Bipartisanship will only push us down the road of self-termination, of self-implosion. That's what bipartisanship does, because it just ends up becoming conservative capitulation. And as we've talked about, conservatism is bad. Conservatism is evil. Why? Because conservatism is fascism, Joe Walsh. Conservatism is fascism. Fascism is evil. Ergo, there's nothing wrong with hating evil. There's nothing wrong with hating fascism. There's nothing wrong with hating conservatism. The question is, do I hate conservatives too? You know, I got family, not so many friends, but I got family that's MAGA. I got family that's anti-MAGA conservatives. What am I supposed to do with them? Am I supposed to just act as if I respect them? And that's the other thing, Joe Walsh, that you don't understand, is that because this is a war, the attitude towards MAGA is not going to be forgiveness. I mean, you think, or you seem to think, forgiveness is going to be happening, but they're hopenotfearproject.org. No, man. The attitude is going to be never forgive, never forget, never respect, ever again. And we're not going to distinguish between MAGA and anti-MAGA conservatives. If you're not voting Democrat, especially in Democratic Party primaries, which is where progressives have a real chance, if you're not bringing the attitude of whatever hurts Republicans helps America, you're not with the times, dude. That's the subtext of what's going on in American political discourse right now, is there is a hunger for an aggressive counterattack, and that counterattack will manifest in the form of a new standard of American politics. Whatever hurts Republicans helps America. And that's going to be the attitude, if I get my way, for the next 40 years. Thank you for watching. If you are part of the Joe Walsh fan club or the Joe Walsh team, I really appreciate you listening. Hopefully you accept this challenge to your basic understanding of where we're at as a country politically, because it's not enough to be anti-Trump. You got to get behind what we're going to replace him with. And if you're not ready to get behind that, then go fix your party. Go fix the Republican Party. Don't come over to the Democratic Party if you're not ready to shut up and listen. Wish I had come up with any way to deal with MAGA types. At least some seem to have some regret, but then there's a lot that seem to be happy with all of it. Yeah, hey man, 80% approval with Republicans. That's what Trump's got right now. 80%. Okay? Now that probably has a lot to do with the fact that moderates have left the Republican Party. But it doesn't matter. They're in a cult. So how do you deal with them, Kevin Maxwell Smith? You cut them out of your life, man. And that's why I take this attitude that I do with guys like Joe Walsh, because we don't need you. You were a part of the Tea Party. You know, I got an email from someone saying, well, you don't really haven't done your homework on Joe Walsh and what he stands for. I know he's part of the Tea Party. You know who else was part of the Tea Party? My mother. I mean, don't suck me back into this, guys. I could go all day about conservatism. Neoliberalism and the progressive left, you know, those are some pretty clear-cut visionary rhetoric going on there. Like, it's pretty obvious what I want to say about them, and it's nice and concise, and it's like a tight little package of information. But when it comes to conservatism, I could go all day deconstructing their value systems, because it's loaded with the 3 cardinal sins of American politics: narcissism, hypocrisy, and ignorance. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and never forget that you don't get change in America by asking nicely.